From the white-hot controversy surrounding the cast of Cleopatra, to critics skewering every aspect of the show, here's why Netflix's new series, Queen Cleopatra, is being slammed by viewers. On paper, the controversy stems from a weird casting choice, with Cleopatra being played by Adele James, a black actress and relative newcomer to Hollywood. The show's producer, Jada Pinkett Smith, has thrown her and the entire show headfirst into the debate over Cleo's ethnicity, which has been argued over for decades. Egypt is a North African country, so a lot of people assume that Cleopatra must have been black. And while some academics are convinced that was the case, others think that she had Macedonian and Greek heritage, so her skin would have either been fair or olive. Netflix admitted that casting Adele was an intentional choice, and they were trying to pay homage to this debate. But series director Tina Garavi gave a more direct response, saying that Adele was a better choice than some actresses who have played Cleo in the past, and that casting a black woman was a political act. Meanwhile, Adele says blackwashing isn't a thing, and that the controversy shows that people are scared of blackness, which drives them to separate Egypt from the rest of Africa. Jada says that there aren't enough stories about black queens, so she's doing the work of telling their stories, which is what Queen Cleopatra is all about. But was Cleopatra actually a black queen? Let's ask the experts. Islam Issa, a professor of history at Birmingham City University, is one of the voices featured in the series, and he acknowledges the fact that Cleopatra was of Greek descent. In other words, she could have been a lighter skin tone than the local Egyptians. But there's a lot we don't know about Cleopatra, because her family tree isn't something you can just find on Ancestry.com. Not to mention, her ancestors had affairs and marriages with Egyptians, so that gets in the way of finding any easy answers. Heck, historians can't even say for sure what her mom's ethnic background was, which would be an important clue in determining Cleo's skin color. There were no portraits or paintings made of her in her life, so the only way to know what she looked like is from her face on the coins of the time, and some unpainted busts. Any full-color depictions of the queen came long after she passed, and those have been the closest source we've been able to find for Cleo's true appearance. But they aren't exactly ironclad proof, are they? I mean, for starters, none of them even came from Egypt. Basically, the reason we don't know what Cleopatra looks like is that no one wrote stuff down, let alone drew anything. The mystery of Cleopatra's skin color is tough to crack, and Islam thinks we shouldn't let it bother us so much. But some Egyptians feel differently and won't drop the argument. Zahi Hawass is an Egyptologist who says flat out that the Netflix series is completely fake. Cleo was light-skinned. And lawyer Mahmoud Al-Samari is asking Egypt's public prosecutor to ban Netflix. Even the Egyptian government weighed in on the debate, and their Ministry of Tourism and Antiques declared that Cleopatra was white-skinned, based on the bas-relief sculptures and statues that they have. In response to Netflix's series, a government-owned broadcaster announced plans to make their own Cleopatra docudrama, one that will respect the history of the queen and her skin color. And Egyptians on social media overwhelmingly think that the role should have gone to an Egyptian actress, and they're speaking out against Netflix's distortion of history, even going so far as saying that Cleopatra was being used to push an Afrocentric agenda, something the Cleopatra wasn't black crowd has always feared. Those people have been getting themselves blocked from Adele's Twitter account. But annoyingly, she isn't the point of their protests anyway. Their rage is aimed at Netflix and Jada. And according to Egyptians, earlier cinematic depictions of the queen were far more accurate. Take the 1963 version of Cleopatra, for instance, starring Elizabeth Taylor. Taylor was very fair-skinned, and much more in line with what most Egyptians believe to be true. And did you know that 1963 wasn't the first time Cleo's story was put on film? True story. Movie depictions of Cleopatra date back to the earliest days of filmmaking. And as far as Egyptians are concerned, the closest filmmakers ever got to nailing Cleopatra's ethnicity wasn't until 1999, when Chilean actress Leonor Varela played her in the Cleopatra miniseries. South America's a long way from Egypt, but Leonor looked the part. And some say the industry's gotten even closer to her true ethnicity by casting Gal Gadot, who hails from Israel, in a Cleopatra movie that's in development right now. So if the queen has never been played by an Egyptian actress, what's the big deal with Netflix's show? Well, it isn't 1963 anymore. And not only are audiences more sensitive about these kinds of issues, but Hollywood has a wider selection of actors from different parts of the world. So, in the eyes of Egyptians, there's no excuse for not getting it right. Also, the '63 movie wasn't really trying to be historically accurate at all. But Netflix's Queen Cleopatra is a docudrama, so we're supposed to take it as being historically accurate fiction. And there's a real chance that people who are less informed about Cleopatra will accept the narrative of the series as fact, which is concerning to Egyptians, because, in their eyes, if Netflix can't even get Cleopatra's skin color right, they must be getting other things wrong too. But all of that depends on whether or not people actually watch Queen Cleopatra. And they might not, because man, have you seen the reviews it's been getting. It has a 1.1 out of 10 score on IMDb, one of the lowest scores I've ever seen in my life. And over on Rotten Tomatoes, critics have had no mercy on this show. It has an approval rating of 20%, making it one of the lowest rated shows in Rotten Tomatoes history. That's just nasty. Critics say the show may bring some fresh speculation about the queen, but in an effort to make the show seem flashy, it comes off as a superficial toga party. Now, I love a good toga party as much as the next guy, but jokes aside, those reviews are horrendous. And critics don't just crap on a show because of a little controversy. So, the series has its problems. But there was a 3-star review from Layla Latif, who praised Adele's performance as Cleopatra. Layla wrote that the actress brought strength and intelligence to her performance, and that overall, the liberties the miniseries takes with historical facts help the story feel more relatable to a modern audience. And Layla wasn't the only one who had some positive things to say about Queen Cleopatra. Critic Melanie McFarland gives the series props for addressing some of the myths about Cleopatra and separating fact from fiction with the help of the show's panel of historians. But I hate to break it to you, that's about it for the good stuff in the show, because it's all downhill from there. And casting controversy aside, the biggest criticism of the series is that it just isn't fun to watch. As a docudrama, Queen Cleopatra had to balance the dramatic aspects with reality. And while some docudramas can really nail that balance, this one dropped the ball big time. So fans of history aren't gonna get what they want from the show, and people who simply wanted to see a modern take on Cleopatra won't get what they want either, because solid acting alone wasn't enough to save the show. If you decide to add it to your binge list and take a run at it, it might be best to watch it like you would a popcorn film. Forget about all the historical accuracies and inaccuracies and just have fun with it. So, there you have it. From critics skewering every aspect of the show to the white-hot controversy surrounding the casting of Cleopatra, that's why Netflix's new series, Queen Cleopatra, is being slammed by viewers.